Welcome to the Viva Vegan podcast with me, Faye. My guest today is renowned journalist and musician, John Robb,
what nature gives,
who many of you will know from his post-punk band, The Membranes. John has had a prolific career, musician and singer, editor-in-chief of the Louder Than War website and magazine. He's also a best-selling author, radio and TV presenter, journalist, DJ, publisher, and model. Arguably, the pinnacle of John's career is writing a regular column in Viva Life. Most recently, he's published The Art of Darkness, The History of Goth, which I've just finished reading, and it's a hefty tome, but brilliantly researched and written, and it's really a must for any post-punk or goth fans out there. So it would be amiss not to talk about that later on. All right, enough preamble. Thank you for joining me today, John.
Hi, yeah, you're right, Faye.
Yeah, I'm all right, thank you.
Yeah.
So let's go back to the beginning a bit. You were born in Blackpool in 1961. Can you tell us a little bit about how you got into music and what your upbringing was like?
Well, Blackpool's quite an interesting place to grow up in. I mean, nobody ever can work out somebody from Blackpool. You know, if you're Liverpool, you're a typical Scouse or a typical Manc from Manchester, but no one knows what a Blackpool person is. And everyone from Manchester always goes, oh, it must have been amazing growing up in Blackpool, because they think it's all illuminations and lights and amusement arcades. And yeah, there's a lot of Blackpool like that, but it's actually quite a big town. There's a lot of it that's nothing like that at all. It's actually quite a lot of just suburban nothingness, but nothing ever happened there. That was the thing, you know, like in the 1950s, it was amazing, but I wasn't around. I just missed that. But Frank Sinatra would go and do Blackpool, you know. The Beatles played Blackpool 14 times in the 60s, you know. It was a go-to place in showbiz, but by the time I got out running around town in the late 70s, that had all gone, you know. It was all yesteryear. But for music-wise, I was a massive glam rock kid, you know. I think like a lot of people my age. Top of the Pops was the portal. And it wasn't just Bowie and Bolan, who I love them both, but it was all the other stuff. It's all the Division 3, Division 4 glam rock. I love Mud and Sweet and Slade and Mott the Hoop. I love all that music. Every week at Top of the Pops, with 2 or 3 of those bands. It was fantastic, and you're watching it. But you had no idea you could ever be involved in it. It just seemed like, even the most mundane, bottom-of-the-bill glam bands seemed hopelessly exotic to us growing up, you know. And it was a world that we could never get involved in. But then when I used to buy the music papers from the mid-70s, and I started reading about this thing called punk. And there's some pictures, not a lot, few pictures of punk bands before they released records. And I kind of could guess what they sounded like from what they looked like, you know, which is very British pop culture. And when and the only place we could hang out when we were 15 in Blackpool was a skating rink, so we used to go ice skating, which wasn't quite as weedy as it sounds. It wasn't Torval and Dean. It was just a massive fight and everyone kicking each other with you know, ice skates. There was blood on the ice. It was mad. I mean, I wasn't getting involved in that. That was all the mad kids, the hard kids and that. And but they played punk records there. So I remember November 76, they played a lot of Northern Soul. Then they had a little punk section and they played all 3 punk records that existed in the whole world. And it was just like, whoa, these sound amazing. Like Anarchy in the UK, New Rose and Ramones record. That's what they played that night. I remember it. But it still wasn't like it wasn't like the next day you could become a punk, because where'd you get the clothes from?
Yeah,
you know, where'd you get the records from? The culture was so far away. But one thing's in punk, and the next couple of years of, you know, being intensely into punk, buying the records, being in love with it all and that, was the message was, mate, why are you waiting? You'll make your own music, you know, create your own culture. So we totally believe that's what you did, you know. And of course, they were just saying that, weren't they? It wasn't actually what it was. I mean, it wasn't like you could just go and get 2 of your mates and suddenly like the Clash. I mean, they're actually really good musicians. But everyone said all the punk bands, anybody can do this, anybody can play. But we had no idea what we were doing. Our first gig in 1978, we played in this place near Blackpool, and we didn't know any guitar scales, chords, never plugged in an amp before, and the drummer never drummed in a proper kit, and we played for half an hour. And we didn't know what choruses were, verses. We had no idea. We were just kids making a racket. Totally DIY, and I think, to me, actually, to this day, I think that's a single great thing that came out of punk. It made a load of people my age just go and do it without even any thinking. You didn't have to go to a place like this, like a college, to learn how to make music. You just went and did it, you know, which is perfectly fine coming to college to learn it. But we didn't do that bit. We missed that bit out. So we were just learning it as we went along, like doing gigs. Somebody said, you know, we couldn't even tune up. We didn't even tune up. We had no idea. The guitar had 4 strings on it because we thought that's how many they had. We bought it with 4 strings on, and we didn't. And the machine heads at the top, the bits you tune, on the bass, we just put them in a row because we thought that's how you tuned it up. So we were clueless. It was so naive, you know. But it was amazing because it got you on the stage and it made you go and do something. If I knew the bar was that high instead of that high, I probably wouldn't have done it, you know.
Yeah.
So it got me into doing it, and it opened the door up to everything. And punk was so empowering. It made you dare to go on stage, which for a lot of British people isn't that easy anyway. But it made all my life, it's made me dare to do things that maybe not that qualified to do, but I could always get in a situation and make it work, and punk inspired me to do that.
That's amazing. I mean, how old were you as well when you started the band and you were out gigging?
I was 16 when I started the band. The drummer was 13.
Oh, so
he was just like a little kid on the school bus, and he had a Sham 69 album one day. And he go, "Oh, do you like punk as well?" And he go, "Yeah." He said, and we started chatting to him, and he goes, "I've just got, my mum's given me £30 for my birthday." It was a lot of money then.
Yeah, it is a lot.
And we said, "Why don't you buy a drum kit and be our drummer?" And that's how he ended up being our drummer. I mean, that's how naive it was. I made a bass with a penknife, with a piece of wood, and stuck another neck in it of that. I didn't know what I was doing. I had no idea. And it actually sounded really good. It was a complete fluke. And we just made it all up as we went along. But then I just recently done that book on goth music, and a lot of those people are my age. A lot of those bands, and obviously a lot of those bands did really well in the end, but most of them had done the same thing. They just kind of fumbled the punk, say, "You go on, you do it," and they got on stage and they found a way doing it that was much more commercial than I'd ever done it. But there's the same roots, you know, and it's that thing that you don't have to wait for permission to make your culture. And I think, to me, that's the strongest thing to this day. So if I meet somebody who runs Blackpool, the chief exec, or chief exec of Stoke or a place like that, those towns, and they're always waiting for government funding, I'm always saying, well, the government's never going to fund you because they don't really care about you. But in my head, you don't wait for them to give you permission, just get on with it. Maybe it's harder, but it's always harder, you've got no money. But that doesn't mean you wait for 10 years and nothing happens. I still believe in DIY culture, but I like to call it DIT culture, do it together instead of do it yourself. So working with other bands and other musicians, but not waiting for permission. You don't need permission to do anything, and that is the single strongest tenet that runs through my life, actually. Yeah.
It's interesting that because a lot of the people you mention in your goth book, and a lot of, you know, Chris Packham, for example, was writing the introduction to that, and you know, he's a well-known vegan, but you've known him a long time. It sounds like you've gone back, you know, and it's that seen through veganism and through music as well.
Yeah, well, me and Chris share a lot of things, you know. Well, one thing we do share, which is actually quite amusing, we're both born exactly the same day.
Ah.
So 4th of May, 61. So when I went to interview him, I met him about 10 years ago, and I said, "Do you want to do anything for my website?" And it was a long shot. I just tweeted him. I never met him and that. And he'd come back really enthusiastic. I thought, well, he's into his punk. Maybe he has a rough idea who I am if you're into your punk and that. But he brought my book down to sign it. And I go, "You're lucky, Chris, you know, because it's my birthday day. And I've taken all this time out to interview." He goes, "Oh, that's funny. It's my birthday as well." And we're both 4th of May, 61. And he's obviously a massive fan of punk. But I'm actually really interested in nature. So we have these amazing conversations. So probably in his world, he doesn't meet as many people who grew up as intensely with punk as me. So he gets his punk rock conversation. But I also get my animal conversation from him as well. So even a couple of weeks ago, he's done that amazing series on Earth. And I don't really watch an awful lot of telly, but I was watching because he's a great presenter. And that program's amazing, and he hates this, but that'll make him the national treasure that he doesn't really want to be. But I was watching the Cambrian bit, and I said, "Oh, you missed a couple of things out here." So it's like these amazing creatures in the Cambrian before it's settled into plants and animals, you know, and all that. There was like a few weird experiments, like the biggest predator had, like, was it 5 legs and 3 stalks coming out his head? Is it called Gigantica? I can't remember his name now, but I did remember when I sent the text. I texted him and said, "Well, where's this? This is my favourite one from the Cambrian times." And he goes, "Well, I really like it as well, but we couldn't fit it in the programmes." That's amazing. You into all the fossils, and because I know, like, nowadays it's kind of kitschy to like dinosaurs. You can buy dinosaur pencil cases and all that, which is funny, isn't it?
Yeah.
But actually, beyond that, it's incredibly fascinating.
Yeah,
And since I was about 5 years old, I'm one of those kids who never grew out of it, really. You know, a lot of my friends' kids love dinosaurs, and they get to 10 and they lose interest in it. They get into grown-up stuff, but I'm just carried on. I like being into the dinosaurs and punk rock and nature and all this stuff. And in your life, you just collect things that you're into, innit? And to this day, I'm really fascinated. And to this day, my mum, who's luckily still alive, still texts me or sends me little scans out of the Times, what she reads, of the latest dinosaur story. Latest feathered dinosaur discovered in China. And then I Google it and find all that about it because it's really fascinating. And it's really changed since I was a kid. So when I was a kid, there was dinosaurs that don't exist anymore. The one that, like Brontosaurus, was just a made-up dinosaur, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But now there's all these feathered dinosaurs, and the idea that Tyrannosaurus rexes were actually probably feathered, but they reckon they were probably multicoloured feathers, and they used to hunt in packs of 200 There's charging across the plains with their weird little arms, you know, all orange and pink feathers. It's like, isn't that just weird?
Just changes your whole
it's so
perception, doesn't it?
utterly odd, isn't it?
Yeah.
How can anybody not be interested in that?
Yeah.
So if you say to other people, like who are a bit more probably grown up, I don't know, you sort of say, look, I explain that, and they look really blank at you, like, are you mad? I go, that's one of the most fascinating things ever, isn't it? So it's just like the idea of that is so weird, and also the idea of what do they do, those little arms? They can't work it out at all, can they? It's useless for every single aspect possible. They couldn't eat with them. Yeah. They couldn't hold on to their mate with them. They couldn't even hold hands.
Try, really camply.
So he's interested in all that stuff as well. And they're the kind of people I like, people interested in everything, you know, like... so we got on really well and that. So, but he was vegetarian when I met him.
Ah, right.
And I was vegan. I said, you're going to have to go the full thingy. I don't have a problem. I don't see it as a league table. I think if people go vegetarian, that's pretty well the battle won, you know. Yeah. But it's just like, I thought, well, you know, it's not that hard to become vegan as well, because all you're doing is not eating one egg a month and a couple of bits of cheese now and then.
Yeah.
It's not like in the 1980s where it was really difficult. Yeah.
So when did you become vegan? Because when did you start being vegetarian and then become vegan? Or?
Well, vegetarian was probably, in punk there was a lot of ideas swirling about. So punk was a lot of different things all at the same time. So some people went to the dark side and got into like really like far right politics, but other people got into really far left politics. Some people got into anarchism, a lot of isms, you know. So it's a crash course for a 16-year-old. You know, people talk about sexism, racism, vegetarianism, which is stuff you didn't really hear about growing up in Blackpool. You know, it wasn't on the agenda. Although weirdly, where I lived, just the town next to me in Blackpool was about just up the road, Cleveland's. Had a vegetarian cafe, and so we always say that, well, my sister cleaned dishes there when she was got a holiday job, but we said she works in a vegetarian cafe. We didn't really know what a vegetarian cafe was. It was just a vegetarian cafe, but I can't work out who went there. I mean, nobody around there would have been a vegetarian. I think people just went there to have cups of tea and thought it was just, you know, I mean, there wasn't, you know, there wasn't even a McDonald's around then, you know, so that, you know how ubiquitous they are. There wasn't even a curry house. The curry house opened in 1918. It's like, wow, that is so incredibly exotic, you know. I mean, Blackpool was very, very, probably to this day a lot, very white bread, fish and chips and that, which is, you know, it's one of the great things about Blackpool, if you can just get rid of the fish bits. Yeah. But it had this really weird idiosyncratic things like a vegetarian cafe in a town that wasn't even in Blackpool. I don't think anybody ever went there for a vegetarian meal and things. So it was there, but we had no idea what it was. And punk helped to explain what it was and the ideas of it. Then when I went to college in 1980, I went to what was then North Staffs Poly, but it's now Staffordshire University, who actually 2 weeks ago finally gave me my degree.
Did you get a PhD there?
Yeah, they just gave me an honorary degree. I only went to one lecture. It's sort of the biggest blag ever. So they actually said, the guy who runs the university, he's actually a massive music fan, so he had a big music conversation, of course. But he said he found the old lecturers and he said, do you remember him being at college? What was he like? And they said, well, we know who he is, but we don't remember him. We didn't know he came to the college because I went to nothing at all. But do you know what's really weird? So when I did the book with Dale, the manifesto book, so I was interviewing him, and you know, to help him out with the book and that, to get the contact. And I said, so he did this and he did that, and he said, then I went to a really boring polytechnic in the Midlands to get a degree to study computers. And I go, that's Stafford, isn't it? It's got to be Stafford. He said, how did you know? She just described it, a really boring polytechnic in the Midlands. And he said, what year were you there, Dale? He goes, 1980. He goes, I was there then. So we're both there at the same time.
Weird, synchronicity.
But the computer bit was about half a mile from the other bit. So our paths had crossed even then, but we didn't know each other at the time. But I don't think he went very much. You know, the computer was the size of this room. I remember going on the computer, went there one night to look at the computer. What is a computer? I mean, like now, we got them in our pockets with a phone. But let's go and look at this newfangled space-age computer. It's absolutely enormous. You had to tap a code about 30 letters in to get it to do something. And you could get it to play computer golf, whatever that was. There's no screen. These bits of paper came out. So tap, 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 tap. Brrr, like, then you go, take your first shot. And you had to put this code in, and you go, you have missed. It was like that. It was like...
It's like something like a science fiction dystopia.
Oh, yeah, science fiction, but more backwards than science fiction, more past. And I was thinking, this ain't going to work, is it? This is so slow. I could work this all out myself without a computer. But he did a course on that computer, and he remembered that computer as well. Yeah.
I mean, interesting, that, isn't it? I didn't know Dale Vince had the... Well, I mean, I read a little bit in the book, but it was... I mean, he's mostly known for the kind of green energy, isn't he, and Forest Green Rovers. And how did you end up coming to kind of write the introduction for Manifesto and work with him?
About 8 years ago. I've always been interested in him. I thought he's a really interesting looking guy, and I knew about Forest Green Rovers, which is definitely the thing that most people know him for, actually, you know, and it's such a brilliant example of everything that we're all really into. And the idea, there's a vegan guy running a vegan football club who's made it vegan. I thought, that's really interesting. This guy sounds really radical. I got an interview for my website. It's the same as Chris. I just got in touch and said, I think I tweeted him and said, well, your stuff looks really interesting. Can I come and interview you? And he said, yeah, just come down. So I thought, I'll go to Stroud. I'm not doing the phone. It'd be better because there's a lot of interesting stuff this guy's up to here, you know. Because I knew a bit more about him then. I thought, and I liked his attitude. And he was not a high-profile media thing at all then, was he? He was just much more just getting on with his own thing and that. And when I went there, I thought, wow, this stuff's amazing. And then we got on really well, you know. And he said, do you want to help write the book, you know? And so I interviewed him a few times to get these, because a lot of people, when they write their own books, they find it hard to remember their own life story or what bits they're interested in. So I just did the interviews, and I, you know, when someone says that bit's really interesting, you know, from the outside it's really interesting. So the biggest bit I did in the book was I said the motorbike thing at the beginning. You've got to start the book with that because it's like the Great Escape.
It's great,
isn't it?
Yeah, and getting into Glastonbury and driving around.
It's mega, isn't it? Well, I thought the book is, to me, in my head, the book's a film. So and one day they will make it into a film because it's a great life story. You know, it's quite renegade, but it's quite exciting, isn't it? It's not what he's done, which is really good. He's made being a vegan, and you know, trying to get everything to zero carbon. He's done it in a way that's more rock and roll. Yeah. I mean, it's great when earnest people do it. Everybody needs to do it. But it's great when you've got somebody who's a great communicator and is also from a completely different background. So I've introduced to those people like Andy Burnham, Steve Rotherham. I've been in on meetings with them and they turn up in their suits. And Andy and Steve are great and they really want to make the change. You know, they're trying to make Liverpool and Manchester zero carbon as much as they can. And they're moving. Dale's got this whole thing for them, this computer-generated model of how to do it. And they're keen to do it, make it happen as much as they can. It's not easy. You know, these cities weren't built with zero carbon. But they turn up, you know, dressed up like mayors, you know, proper suits on. And Dale turns up, his black nail varnish, just like a traveller. Never changes for anybody, does he? Which is great. And I love the way he does telly as well. So he goes on the telly, Nigel Farage, 10 minutes, blah, 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 blah. And instead of like most people go, look, you just shut up. But he doesn't do that. He gets to the end, he goes, yeah, I see your point, but... And then he goes, and you see Farage go, oh my God, this guy actually knows what he's talking about. And because he's so calm, instead of being shouty, people listen. It's a mistake everyone makes in the internet age. People get on Twitter arguments and shout at each other. Nobody listens to the other person. I think you have to listen to the people you don't agree with, don't you? I mean, you don't have to agree with them, but you have to understand why they think like that. But people nowadays go, no, you shut up, you idiot, you're really stupid and all that. And they may be really stupid, but if you tell them they're stupid, you're not going to win that argument, are you?
Definitely not. And it's polarising everything.
Really polarising. Yeah. You've got to respect their point of view. Present your point of view and try and find some middle ground. It's the only way you're ever going to do it, I think.
Especially with something like veganism, you know, like a huge all-encompassing, when you've got environment, animals, everything. You can't just be yelling all the time. You've got to make salient points, haven't you? And just calmly and rationally, and people start to go, oh, hang on a minute, yeah, that makes sense. And
or appreciate some people can only do it one day a week, or some people don't have the time or the money to do it and things. You know, I think just keep presenting the idea. The ideas are so strong that when people get the time to think about it, they take them on board, and also simplify the process as well. So it's not, for a lot of people, they'll think that's just some really fancy, complicated diet that posh people have. And you know, you know, we could say, well, it isn't actually. You know, it's actually cheaper and it's better for you, and it's and you know, like, and animals don't get hurt. I mean, I only did it for the animals in the first place. I didn't even know it was healthy. I didn't know all the other stuff. I just thought, well, if it's going to make me ill, I'll just have to put up with that, you know. But I don't really want to be involved. Because the other thing was in Stafford. And the house I lived in was next door to an abattoir, and the cows would look at you and you think, oh God, they know, don't they? So it never occurred to me, living in a town like Blackpool, didn't really have cows. And in the 60s and 70s, you went to schools and people didn't really explain that animals are sentient beings. They were just animals, you know. People thought they were put on earth, God's earth for you to eat. That's what older people would always say, innit? Like, good job they don't feel anything. But I walk past these cows and they'd be looking at you like that, think, oh God, they look scared. You know, and I thought they know it's not one. They're not happy being sort of trapped in a place like that. That place where a cow would smell of death and fear, and they would communicate with each other that what's going to happen. You know, I mean, as time goes on, we now realise that animals communicate. When I was a kid, people didn't know that at all, did they? People thought, you know, bird song's beautiful, but it doesn't mean anything, you know. But then, you know, it turns out crows are smarter than dogs, you know. And it's not quite what we grew up with, is it? You know, I checked that little fact with Chris Packham, actually. You know, it's not the size of a brain; it's the density of a brain, is the intelligence of an animal, you know. So octopuses are really smart, you know. Octopuses can remember your face for 10 years, and yeah, you know, it's
don't
like
wrong them.
yeah, and they know what's going on, you know. I mean, yeah, I know these animals are predators and that, but you know, the great thing about humans is we have a choice, you know. You know, we can opt out of this if we want. You know, we're the only species on this planet that was totally capable of destroying the planet, but we're the only species on this planet that's ever actually given a toss about the planet and will try and save it. So I'll try to concentrate on the positives.
You have to, don't you? Otherwise it just becomes overwhelming.
There's a lot of positives though, isn't there? You know,
Yeah,
you see
are.
all that stuff that people like Dale are doing, and the, you know, Steve and Andy in Liverpool are actually keen to make the changes. You know, it's the bat is small, it's slow in it, but it's the increments, they're coming, aren't they? You know.
I think so, and the younger generation as well, like, you know, much younger than me now, are a lot more aware about the planet, especially, you know, and it all feeds in, I think. So it's.
Yeah, well, when I was growing up, the planet thing would be about, you know, saving the species, save the whale. It'd be like that, wouldn't it? You know, and people used to think that was funny. Why would you care about a whale, whatever? People had never seen a whale, didn't realise a whale was amazing. It's like a cathedral of an animal, isn't it? Isn't it? Well, they used to say it was the biggest species that ever exists on Earth, but I think there's bigger ones. When I've been reading my little dinosaur facts,
Really,
they've actually found things that have been bigger than whales. But there's some of the biggest animals ever created on this planet, and they're here while we're here. Is amazing, isn't it? What a stroke of luck, you know. And you know, and they're not these vacant things floating around the ocean, are they? You know, they're really beautiful animals. They love their children, little baby whales and that. You know, they feel things, don't they? They're not there to make. They're not, when they kill them, the stuff they make them into is not even worth being made
what's
into.
The point? Yeah,
it's utterly
ridiculous.
Pointless, isn't it? It's like, you know, they are Iceland and Norway and Japan doing their scientific surveys, and it's like, no, stop. There's no point at all, you know. You probably make more money taking tourists out and charging loads of money to take a photograph of a whale, you know, and
Leave them.
you can still have all your adventures on the high seas. You just don't have to murder anything, you know.
It's true, and it's like with the octopus you were talking about. You know, they've started wanting to try and intensively farm them, and you're just like, why?
You can't intense farm something that knows it's in a prison.
Yeah.
You know, it's not. It's not going to go like, oh, I've no idea where I am. It's going to go, I'm really claustrophobic. It's really doing my head in, and I know what you're going to do to me, you know. And it's, they know.
They get aggressive, don't they, when they're kind of put into controlled situations.
They completely know what's going to happen, you know.
Yeah.
It's a thing that, and when you have the choice, you don't actually have to eat them at all. That's the thing, isn't it? There's lots of other options, you know. So we didn't know all this stuff when we were younger. So we, you know, it's just. We didn't really realise that animals felt things, you know, and they were just like us, really. There isn't really any difference. We are part of nature. But then it kind of changed to saving the planet, which is great, of course. But but now it's actually about saving ourselves, isn't it? Because basically, if we wipe the Earth out, the Earth will take a knock, but in 20 years, it'll just go off another direction without us, you know. It's survived worse extinctions than the ones we're going to give to it, isn't it? You know, it's been 5 great extinctions. Sometimes in my most cynical moments, I think that we're actually here to be the 6th great extinction, you know. If you think of the whole universe actually as a thing that lives, so a volcano in a weird way is a sort of form of kind of life, but it's kinetic, isn't it? And the whole universe is a thing. That getting hit by a meteorite is just part of being in the universe. Or if one of the species on a planet destroys the planet, it's the same as getting hit by a meteorite, basically. It's the same. You know, it's in these scheme of things, it's the same. 90% stuff gets wiped out, and then everything flourishes in another direction. And if you're really, really cynical, you think maybe that's what we're here for. But then you think, surely we're here for something better than that.
Well, you'd hope so. It's the whole idea. I mean, the universe is all like just energy, right? Everything is energy. And humans understand that because you tap into these things too, don't you, instinctively sometimes, or you get these different things that kind of come to you, and that's like what you're saying, the world will just keep evolving. It might take a different form.
We are the universe. This room is the universe.
One.
The universe isn't something that's dark and over there.
No,
This is the universe. This thumb's the universe, isn't it? It's all the same atoms. They're just constituted here in forms that are like us, but there's life across the whole universe as well, isn't it? It's not a lot, but it's not like everywhere's team of life, because you have to have certain conditions, but it's there. You know, I mean, and it doesn't come. There's no. The UFOs don't come here to check us out. The universe is so ridiculously massive. You're not going to fly over a little spaceship like that and then always land in the same place and then go away again.
Yeah, it's always America, isn't it?
Isn't
You
it?
think that's the last place you'd want to
It's
land.
just crazy, isn't it? You know, it'd be a random thing. And also, they wouldn't come here. There's no point. You know, there's bigger prizes out there. But there is life out there, and it's advanced life forms. That's the other thing about going out to look for it. Not a good idea.
No.
You know, that assumption they're going to be like the sort of hippie, sort of an advanced species of hippies is not going to be out there. They're going to be aggressive species that if they could be asked to come here will wipe us out. We do the same.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh,
so
we were doing that anyway.
yeah, we could do ourselves.
Look at the
If we
moon
went to
and
another
Elon
planet,
Musk
we would do it,
now.
wouldn't we? I mean, the universe is another really fascinating topic, and I got to know all the CERN scientists, and I knew all the little universe facts. You know, the multiverse, which they can't prove, but they think that probably is a multiverse. That means infinite universes, all overlapping. They're all in this room, and because there is no such thing as time in a sense, and all our constructs of how we see things, we're so puny. What do they think? There's 50 senses. We've only got 5. There's senses we don't even know exist. You know, that where all this, we could probably see the other universes, or all the stuff's going on, isn't it? And the reality of, and it's real. It is there. It's not like it doesn't exist till we work it out. It's actually already out there, being weird.
Yeah,
you know,
it's true.
And it puts everything in amazing context. We're here just for a flicker of time, you know, and it really doesn't matter. You know, nothing matters. You know, the universe is so massive. The Earth is a tiny dot. The galaxy we're in, the Milky Way, is unimportant. It's a minor one on the edge of. There's way bigger ones. The one that's nearest to us, Andromeda, is bigger, and Andromeda's going to crash into us and swallow us up. Yeah, so no matter if the sun goes, or if the sun, you know, at some point, or Andromeda gets here first.
It's true, isn't it? It's so beyond, and we just don't have the comprehension as humans. I mean, even using 10% of our brain says a lot, and then, you know, there's access to other things, and
all we actually are tuned into all the time. And maybe everything, all the universe is tuned into. We did a record about this called The Hum of the Universe, one of the tracks. The universe has a musical note, which is B minor, step down about 14. I mean, you can't hear, I mean, it's a vacuum, and the sound doesn't travel, but the sound of Big Bang is B minor, apparently. And I thought, what an amazing idea. Then I thought, meditation, you know, you try and tune into the universe. Literally, you probably are tuning into the universe, because you're tuning into B minor, which is a beautiful chord anyway. Yeah. And maybe music, if you really want to extrapolate this, is a way of tuning into the universe, in a sense, you know.
It was like the human resonance, isn't it? That like they are the heartbeat of the earth, and that frequency that people listen to, and the Solfeggio beats, and it's all to do with different frequencies and wavelengths and what it does and how it affects you.
Oh, completely, it's powerful, isn't it? And it's, you know, and maybe it's our way of tuning into it is by making music, or language in a sense is music as well, and those ideas, they're fascinating, aren't they? I like to think about those things, and that we're not separate from nature, but we're certainly not separate from the universe. You know, we're part of the universe as well, you know, and when we die, all our atoms go back into the universe. So there is weirdly an afterlife, you know. It's not the one. It's not like surrounded by angels and you get another go in 50 years' time. It's just like your atoms become other things. They spread out across the universe. We are actually made out of the stuff from the Big Bang. You know, the Big Bang, which they said they're not even sure if that even happened anyway now. You know, they trace back the history of the universe, all the waves and everything, back to the first trillionth of a second. But they say that trillionth of a second, they have no idea what happened then. Did it all blow up from one point? Or was it always there, you know? The other thing in space, there's no edge to space. It's infinite, and all the universes are in it. So the universe isn't everything. The universe is just your bit of space, isn't it? The other thing they told me is they think theoretically, and this is very, I mean, a lot of these guys did a lot of acid, but they think theoretically every single other universe in the multiverse, every single thing that ever could possibly happen is happening somewhere else. So this interview would be going on somewhere else, but there'd be a talking dog in it. You know, like
Schrodinger's
infinite versions of this interview would be happening in all these different times. Yeah.
But once you get your head around the fact that time's not linear, it's a bit easier to start bringing those concepts in, isn't it? And
it's not even linear. A plane flying over you, there's a billionth of a second difference to what we are here, so it bends anyway. Or is it just a human concept for measuring where we are in things? You know, it's the only way we can understand where we are is to make things on a timeline, isn't it? Yeah.
I remember being about 9 or 10 and reading this book, A Wrinkle in Time by Madeleine L'Engle, and I was just a kid. And I was like, line, square, cube, time, tesseract, shortcut through time. And then that's the kind of thing that sparks it and gets you thinking, isn't it?
It's amazing. You know, anything out of the box, I think I'm always fascinated by it. You know, anything that's not mundanity. The power of ideas are thrilling, aren't they? And even if ideas are wrong, they're catalysts for other ideas. You know, even these theories that they're thinking about what the universe is, even if they're just grasping at it and they haven't got it right, scientists are happy with that. You see, they don't. This difference between religion and science. Religious people are completely definite about their idea of life with no proof, and scientists are fairly sure, but they spend their whole lives trying to disprove their own theories, because it has to be tested and tested and tested again, you know. And it's like, and then even if they test it over and over again and it works, they say it still should be proven, you know. This is not 100%. I'm happy if this all changes, you know. Now there's parts of Einstein's theory that don't work if you go across the whole universe. Einstein wouldn't have been like getting angry, throwing a chalk dust across the room. Here we go, great, where's this trip going now?
Yeah, and that's how it is, isn't it? What was it? Noam Chomsky said something about collective conditioning, spare me from the collective conditioning or something like that. And it's thinking that your mindset's right because it's just, that's what everybody believes in.
Yeah, no, it's pretty crazy, isn't it? But then you end up with people who believe conspiracy theories because their reasoning's right, isn't it? Because they question everything, but they don't question the thing they see on YouTube. Whereas I would question the whole lot.
Yeah, everything's up for debate, everything.
And nothing's simple.
No.
You can't explain everything away in 2 or 3, in a tweet. You know, the world is very complex. It's not run by a cabal of 5 people, you know, with, you know, going, why don't we do this? You know, it's chaos. It's utter chaos. Nature's chaos. The universe is chaos.
And that's, I mean, you wrote a whole album about this, didn't you? In, oh God, what year was it?
15, I think.
Yeah, 2015. I think I've got it written down somewhere. You know the one I'm talking about.
Yeah, Dark Matter, Dark Energy.
That's the one, yeah. So, I mean, how did the kind of concept for that come about? Is it just...
Well, I did a TEDx talk, and I was talking about punk rock DIY, and the head of the CERN project was there talking about neutrinos. And afterwards, they take you all out for a meal, and he comes over and he said, "Oh God, I love punk rock. Let's talk about punk rock." And I said, "See how punk rock just joins everything together? It's mad, isn't it?" And I said, "To be honest, I want to talk about the universe, you know." So and they love talking about the universe. They're so enthusiastic about the idea. So he told me all the concepts and everything. So I got to know quite a few of them, and some of them done gigs with us. We did these special universe and music gigs, and the scientists of the sport bands explaining neutrinos or concepts of the universe. You know, they love it, you know, because they get CERN would pay for them to go on the trip and do it to explain science to people. They just think it's great to go to a gig and explain stuff. We did one in Estonia with an Estonian choir playing with us, and this great guy, Umut Kose from Turkey, who's at CERN, and he came out and he did his neutrinos thing. It's ace.
Brilliant.
There's another one they found now. I was reading about the other day. They got an even smaller particle they think they found, isn't it?
I haven't heard about that. But
I can't remember its colour. Something like a yum or some really weird word I couldn't pronounce. Yeah.
It just keeps growing and growing, and you learn more.
Oh yeah. Well, as soon as they found a new one, it completely deconstructs all the theories. Everything has to be reworked out. But they're happy with that.
Yeah.
They go, "This is what we want." You know, we don't stop and go, "Right, we worked it all out."
Got to keep adapting. And
the guy from CERN said, "What did he say?" He said, "The more we find out, the less we know," which I nearly called the album. I thought it was such a great term. You know, he said 30 years ago when he joined CERN, they thought they were that close to working out the universe, and now they're even further away. He said dark matter and dark energy was the curveball they didn't expect. Yeah. A chaos theory as well. That's another one that's... Oh, yeah.
We can't even really touch on that, can we?
There's also an anti-chaos theory that everything follows the rules of mathematics perfectly. The whole universe, if you do it into mathematical equations, which is a bit beyond me, actually all the mathematical equations work across the universe. So that's that one that leads into that theory that the universe is a very complex computer game. Yeah.
I like that.
And we're all inside it, aren't we?
Yeah.
Which unfortunately Elon Musk goes on about sometimes, doesn't it? Which sort of puts you off, doesn't it?
It does a little bit, yeah, let's be honest. But it's the idea of like Fibonacci sequences as well, isn't it? And everything, having like the different mathematical equations, and then you've got bands creating that, like Tool and songs and...
Oh, Tool, what an amazing band.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'd like to interview that guy.
Oh, Maynard.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, he's definitely somebody I would get on with, I think. Those kind of people into a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just knows.
I might not even agree what he's saying, but those kind of people I just love talking to, because you think, yeah. You know, and it's an idea bounce, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, when I was, 14 or 15, that was the band as well that got me learning about what's lateralus, what's parabola, what's parable. And, you know, they get you thinking, especially when you're that age, because that's when your mind's most flexible, isn't it, and open to things as well.
The trick is keep your mind that flexible all your life. I'm open to any ideas, anything interesting I'm interested in. In fact, I realised in the end that, I mean, I've always loved music, but I'm as excited by ideas as music, and that's probably one of the reasons I went to interview Dale or went to speak to Chris Packham, all those kind of people, because I knew they were ideas people, you know, and also I knew they had positive solutions instead of like going, the world's this, the world's that, and give up. You know, they were people you feel a kinship to, because they're obviously way better known than I am, so they got more clout to get their ideas through. But they got ideas, and they're fascinated by ideas as well, you know. So I was just, all through my life, I've just collected, as I've gone along, people of interesting ideas, and I introduce them as well. That's my other. I thought, well, obviously I'm not a National Treasure TV presenter, but I know lots of people, so I can introduce, you know, Steve Rotherham or Andy Burnham to Dale, or I can introduce this person to that person, and I say, you should speak to that person, make something happen. Yeah. Because I can't, I mean, Dale invents things, I can't invent things, you know. Sometimes I think, what do I actually do?
Oh, you host events, you do the vegan thing in Manchester.
Yeah, but I don't invent a plane that's zero carbon plane, do I?
No,
Like
that's
Dale
true.
can, and it's amazing what he's done, because he only went to Stafford for a year and learned computers for a bit. That's it. And now he worked out to make a windmill. I mean, he built it himself.
They should look at the teaching at Stafford, because apparently you only have to go for like once a year and you do really well coming out of there. They should get a raise, all of these people.
They started doing their alumni, and there was some other people you think, oh, that's interesting. I thought they'd never have gone there. But it was a dustbin. It was a place you didn't even need A-levels to get in. I didn't even apply. My sister applied for me. I didn't even want to go to college. I was getting my BAM thing going, and then I found out my sister had got me into Stafford Poly. And I thought, well, I've heard of Stafford, it must be quite a big place. And I went, and for about 2 weeks thought, where's the rest of it? And then I realised, oh God, that's it, isn't it?
Oh, horrible. I mean, you know, you speak as well to Parliament quite a bit, and I know it was, you know, around getting visas secured and things like that. But in terms of like veganism and climate change and everything like that, what do you see is going to happen next?
Well, it's an interesting point now. We're at weird crossroads, isn't it? Because there's obviously there's a big expansion of veganism. Then it's hit a brick wall, hasn't it? And now the meat industry's obviously got very good PR people. So every day I read the paper about people aren't buying fake meat, therefore it's all over. I think, well, it's not real. I've never bought fake meat. Can't stand the idea of eating meat. I don't want to be reminded of it, let alone, you know, eat stuff that's not even that healthy. Yeah. You know, so it's I just think we need counter ideas to get past this little glitch at the moment. And so the moment it's got people think it's struggling and it's dying back down again. I know it's all fake, all these numbers and that, true. But we need more positive stories to go out there as well. And also I think we need to take the argument to people who are very intractable. They're not gonna. You're going to say it's good for you. I don't care if it's good for me, you know, or it's good for the animals. Don't care about animals. So how do we get to those people? And this is something me and Dale do talk about, like our ideas of green populism. And, you know, so a lot of time the ideas of this kind of thing, they're kind of posh ideas, aren't they? You know, in Manchester you go to Chorlton, which is where all the media people live, nice part of town, like Islington really. Yeah. And it's got loads of organic vegan shops there, which is great, it's ace. But you go to North Manchester, much more working class, and it's rarer, you know. And you can't have people from Chorlton telling people from North Manchester, you know what, you should do this. It ain't going to work, you know. People go away, you ponce. You're telling me what to do. You know, you've got to remember people think like that quite fairly. You know, don't talk down to people. This is what green populism, if it ever get it to work, is good at. You know, it's just carrying people with enthusiasm, really, isn't it? And Forest Green Road is a great example of that, you know. So when Dale bought the club, he made it all vegan, and everyone goes, oh God, it all tastes like sawdust. So he had to make a burger that tasted better than a meat burger. So all the skeptics going, oh God, these taste good. And that's green populism. That's how you explain to people, you know. No, it's about what you can do, not about what you can't do. It's not people say, oh, you don't have to have a car, or you know, we're going to have to live like monks in sackcloth. No, we're going to have a better time. We're going to have a better time, but we're not going to kill anything while we're doing it, you know. So we can replace all the food with stuff that tastes better, is better for you, and no animals got killed in that process, you know. And I think that's perfectly fair. I think most people go with that if it didn't cost them as much, you know, and it was easy to get, you know, because most people don't have all day to sit at home worrying about animals. You know, their lives are complex, messy, hard, you know, tough lives. You know, they think my life's tough enough. That's what they're thinking. Why do I care about a hedgehog? You know, because I haven't got time to care about a hedgehog. I'm stressed. You know, so you've got to make it easy for people, and that's our challenge for people in our world. We know we're right. but we have to do it in a way that appeals to people and doesn't patronise them and becomes part of the fabric of their lives, in a sense. Yeah.
It's really tough, isn't it?
It is tough, but I think relentless enthusiasm and optimism, pessimism is what the right always do to destroy everything, isn't it? Like you go, oh, no, nothing's ever going to change. It's always crap. The government's terrible. They want you to moan. They like us when we're moaning because we don't do anything. That's British people, isn't it?
Yeah.
We moan about everything and nothing happens,
And that's how they stop the younger people from voting too, isn't it?
They say, what's the point? They're all the same. No, we're not actually all the same at all. I mean, sometimes you get a bit too close, but let's get one side in who's prepared to listen to ideas for the future. But at the end of the day, I think maybe we don't need the governments. Maybe people like Dale, people on the outside, people actually making this stuff. It's just going to happen without them. Then they'll take the credit. If we had a booming green economy, the Tories would be the first all over it, wouldn't they?
Yeah, exactly.
Look at what we've done. Not really, no. But again, that doesn't matter because all that matters is getting the booming green economy where animals aren't slaughtered. I don't care if people do it for the money. I don't care if they do it for all the wrong reasons, as long as we get to the end point. Yeah.
And that saves animals.
That's it. And the environment and the world and the human race, ultimately, innit?
Before we kill off the world.
Because it's achievable.
Yeah.
It's not an impossible idea. It's actually, if we had the model in place now, we'd be going, why do we have the old model? Like now, looking back at Victorian times, God, it's mad then, innit? We had 6-year-old kids going up chimneys and the air in cities, the pea soup fogs, and you couldn't see 2 feet in front of you. Who could live like that? Yeah. All the suffragettes, which is a really interesting example, when you read the press about the suffragettes at the time, and it was like these women, they're destroying society, and how dare they sit in the middle of a road and stop our horses and carts, and and the demonisation of the women is exactly the same as the demonisation of the Just Stop Oil people. Yeah. It's the same headlines and the same tactics. Think, wow, that never changed. So who's on the right side of history in the end, isn't it?
True.
But I think the Just Stop Oil thing is we just need to get solutions in place for normal people who trying to get to work, so you can see why they're annoyed. But why don't we, if only we could just fast forward the alternatives so we wouldn't need Just Stop Oil. We would have got past that bit, because obviously we need that now to make those points. But we need the practical solutions. So people go, all right, maybe they are right, but what am I going to do? I can't get to work because the bus is rubbish, the trains don't work. I can only get there in a car, and I can't afford an electric car. They're expensive and they're problematic as well. They're still not the perfect model. We're trying to cram 50 years of change into 5 years. We should have changed it when I was a kid. When I was watching Tomorrow's World, which is a science programme, they used to talk about, in the future, every building with a solar panel on the roof, and we won't need electricity like this and this, and it'll all be self-powered. And I remember being 10 thinking, that's amazing. I can't wait for that to all appear next year. All right, the year after, oh my God, they still haven't done it. Yeah. This is 1970. Yeah. And it just never happened. They knew then, didn't they? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But this revolution takes, you talk about first, second, third, fourth, fifth tech industrial revolution taking place.
I know, it's mad though, isn't it? They could have done it in a year.
Yeah.
They could have done it at the time. They could have gone, okay, every new house in Britain has to have solar panels on the roof. Let's just do it. Yeah. And get on with it. My house might be slightly more expensive, but you know what? We can balance it out from somewhere else, because it's about priorities, isn't it? I mean, when they say there's no money to change things, and then you lose all that money on PPE, which wasn't millions, it was actually billions. Yeah. And no one's ever questioned that. It's just gone into all their mates' pockets.
Magic money tree.
Yeah, the magic money tree, which actually does exist.
Yeah, apparently so.
and it's all there, and they could do so.
Why not do that? Or any house built after 1971 automatically defaults to solar.
Should have been like that. Yeah. From then, and by now we'd be laughing because those panels would have got out of date, of course, but we'd have just kept replacing them as going on. And also we should have built them in Britain, so we'd have a British-based industry making solar panels and pay people properly, don't pay half-cut wages. And have companies where the person at the top doesn't end up a billionaire. I know this sounds like some mad revolution, but you know what? It's humanist, isn't it? Yeah. It's about human beings. Why has the person at the top got any more value than the person cleaning the toilets? I mean, it's a unit and everyone works together, isn't it? It's not like in a war situation, if you're under attack, the officer is about as important as the person at the back with a gun keeping guard. You're all in the same boat in the end, aren't you? So, but more respect to people's jobs for a start. And all these ideas would have worked. I think we'd be a much more happier country. So now we're trying to do that now, 50 years later, aren't we? But this is one of the things we came up with. So we had this idea of a scheme to train people in green jobs. So it's a Green Britain Academy. So we've almost got it worked out now. So we've got all the courses made by people in Stoke, actually. There's educational people there, constructed the courses based on Dale Vince's green code to make courses to teach people green ideas in a non-patronising way. So it's what we found was a lot of the bosses of the companies wanted to do it, but they didn't know what to do. So we thought there's going to have to be 2 courses, one for the bosses, saying, if you run your company like this, do like that, don't do that, don't do this. Maybe that would work. You can make more money. And then the workforce, you can teach more, all young people. I mean, what I really want to do is green apprenticeships, which eventually gets at some point down the line. So I know people talk about this a lot now, but when I was 3 years ago, it was not a lot less people. But we should have been the leaders in the green industrial revolution. Why are we letting the Germans and everyone else beat us? Why are we letting the Chinese build all the electric cars? We were the manufacturing hub of the world. What we are very good at in this country is making stuff. Yeah. We don't make anything now.
Yeah.
We get people on phones ringing people up. That's all we do. We're brilliant with our hands. We're brilliant with our minds. We make stuff. We were the workshop of the world, and they sold it all out to other countries. Which is, I'm an internationalist, but I think each country should have control of its own culture and its own businesses. Because communities are smaller, they're more localised, aren't they? And I think if we had green industries like that, then we could go to broken towns, put them in there, train up the workforce, make sure they're paid properly, and then they would go, what is this green stuff? I'm not sure what it is, but I'm getting paid really well to work here. I might take some of this on and show people it's a positive thing. It's not a punishment, basically.
Yeah. No, it's a brilliant idea.
Yeah, well, we're working on it, and if it fails, it fails. I don't care. At least we're going to try.
Yeah. Which is a lot more than,
Because it goes back to DIY, punk rock DIY, I'm not sitting there waiting for someone else to do it. I'm going to go ahead and do it. I can't write education courses, but we just went out and found somebody who could.
Yeah, but someone else can, and you can offer this, and someone else can bring this in, and you've got a team of experts.
Doing it together as well, and it's like, it might be my idea, my engine that started it, but I'm not going to be arrogant to think I know how to do it. It's a specialist role. People have to know what they're doing to make this stuff, don't they?
Yeah. Gotcha. I mean, you've just released a book as well, The History of Goth. I mean, you've been writing pretty much, you started, was it Rocks magazine around the same time as the Membranes? Yeah,
but that's the other thing about punk, anybody could do it. Yeah. So people would say fanzines, anybody could do a fanzine. So we thought, well, let's do that. That's how I learned to write, just in a fanzine. I've never been trained to write, just got on with it, really. I know it's a brilliant thing about punk. There's a lot of us, starting in fanzines. We've become quite well-known cultural figure now, like James Brown, who did Loaded, the editor of Loaded. He started on fanzines. I met him when he was 14. He's like a little kid. And he never went to college to learn how to be a journalist. He just worked it out,
Got on with it. Well, I mean, that's amazing. So what have you got coming up for the next 12 months then?
Well, all these schemes and ideas, and always ideas and stuff. So you get really obsessed with an idea. You just have to make it happen. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So just carry on the same. I'm not interested in retiring. I can't think. Why would you want to retire?
No.
I'm here. If I get to 90, I'll still be doing it. Yeah.
Good. I mean, you keep fit as well, don't you? And you do a lot of fitness.
Apart from
the arm,
stupid
not
arm. Yeah. 2 months and I'll be fixed.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think you have to be fit to do what I do. I think if you're physically fit, you've got a fit mind. I think that's really important. So running every day, I'll go for a run. Well, maybe not today because I have to get up really early to get here.
Yeah, sorry about that.
I'm not very good at getting up early.
Yeah.
I don't get up super late. I can get up about 8 or 9, which I know most people watching this go, that's not early. Yeah. But in my world, that's early. I'm usually up an hour before the music business.
Yeah, that's pretty good to be fair, 8 or 9.
Yeah. So yes, so I think that's important. I think you got to look after yourself. All the rock and roll stuff's great, but by the time you got to 30, if you're still doing it, it's like not worked out at a good time without that, or get off your head or whatever. But if people want to do that, I'm not there. I'm not a Puritan. I'm not there to tell them what to do. But for me personally, I have much better time being like this, being fascinated by ideas and great conversations and opportunities to do stuff and things. Yeah. I'm just trying to do my bit for the green revolution or the revolution, whatever it is, Yeah.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for chatting.
No, thank you.
Today,
Yeah, appreciate it. Yeah.
Oh, and before we go as well, you penned a column for Viva.
Yeah.
In our Viva life. How did that come about?
I think they asked me actually.
I think. Well, they asked.
Years ago, I went to do their Christmas dinner, and I was to compare, and I did the auction. I think they asked me then to do it.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Fair
And it's a
enough.
great thing to do, yeah, because they just let me write what I want. So it's got a lot of serious content in there. Mine's just a bit more, it's funny, you know, it's meant to be funny, a bit obscure, a bit more, it's not, I'm not a journalist, you see, I'm a writer, so it's a bit more literate than journalese, you know. Well, the journalese is fine because you have to make points and punchy points. But I think my bit there is just to do something that's a bit more entertaining in a sense, you know. But I think the magazine is really great now because it used to be about 80 pages and now it's really thick and it's got loads of good recipes in it and really good articles. It's really readable, the whole thing. Yeah, so I think it's good to see it going from strength to strength.
Oh, lovely. Well, thanks again for chatting to me today, John.
Yeah,
It's
thanks,
an absolute
Faye.
pleasure.
Yeah, thank
Lovely
you.
to meet you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
all right.